everyone, it's Ali. Thanks for joining me for this card making tutorial. I'm really excited to share a fun and different way to use your Nuvo Drops to create amazing stained glass inspired panels for your cards. There are so many possibilities with this technique and you don't need many supplies to get started. Most of us will have these bits in our stash already. Let's get stuck in. You can use any stained glass die for this technique, and in fact it doesn't have to be stained glass. Any design with smaller enclosed panels that can be filled in can work for this technique. I'm using this Gemini single lily window die from Crafter's Companion, which is handy because it comes with a second larger die to cut the aperture from your card base. First I need to cut my stained glass panel from some black cardstock. I used black because it's traditional and striking, but you can go for black gloss, grey, silver, white or any colour you like really. Go crazy! After I've removed all the die cut pieces from the panel, I need to attach a piece of acetate behind it, large enough to extend outside the aperture we'll be cutting from our card front later. I prefer to use strong double-sided tape on the outside edges, and then press that firmly into the acetate, but you can also use liquid adhesive on the inner parts too, if you like. I don't like using liquid adhesive with acetate because I always smear it everywhere, but maybe you're less clumsy than me. With all that done, we can move on to making the stained glass panel with our Nuvo Drops. I've pulled out a selection of colours and finishes from my collection here. Since we have the acetate in the background of our panel, we can now use the Nuvo Drops to fill in our design. The raised die cut will keep the colours contained within each stained glass panel. The nozzles of these tubes are pretty small, so I find I can be quite accurate with where I'm putting my Nuvo Drops and spread them around just using the nozzle. For smaller areas though, I like to pull out my craft pick and drag the wet liquid into those little corners. You can also use a needle here, but whatever you use, make sure you're wiping off the end regularly. Both so you don't mix colours, and so you aren't letting the Nuvo Drops dry on your tool. Nuvo Drops are self-levelling, so your panels should dry pretty flat, but be warned, it's unlikely they will be completely perfect. Personally, I think that's all part of the charm though. If you've built up a collection of them, like I have, you'll know there are quite a few different finishes of Nuvo Drops. I wanted to try a selection of different types on this project to test them out and see how they look as stained glass panels. I found that I liked all of them. They give different effects of course, but it's definitely a lot of fun to mix and match different finishes as well as colours. The first colour I used on this panel, the yellow, is from the Glow Drops range, in Neon Banana Split. Apparently these glow in the dark. This came out fairly opaque, although not completely. The pink and purple I used for the flower petals are the Jewel Drops, in Pink Aura and Cocoa Blush. These dry translucent with just a hint of colour, so they give the most traditional stained glass look of all the different Nuvo Drops. For the leaves and stem, I use the Glitter Drops in Emerald City. The Glitter Drops are a fine multicoloured glitter suspended in a clear base, like a classic glitter glue you might have played with as a kid. The difference though is that they have a mix of glitters in them and they are available in slightly more grown-up colours. Of course, you probably wouldn't see glitter in most traditional stained glass, but it's definitely a fun look to try. The most common ones, and usually the first type people try, are the Crystal Drops. These are actually available in two finishes, the regular Crystal Drops, which have a metallic finish with super fine shimmer mixed through, and the Gloss Crystal Drops, which are not metallic. These are the ones I'm using here for the flower background and part of the border. You can see the difference between these and the Jewel and Glitter Drops because these are totally opaque. The two colours I've used are Calming Aqua and French Lilac, and they remind me of vintage milk glass. I think this looks really pretty, even though you can't see through it. Definitely gives a nice contrast to the other types of drops. There are a few other types of Nuvo Drops I haven't used here. Stone Drops, which as the name suggests look like stone when they dry. Vintage Drops, which have a smooth matte finish. Dream Drops, which are in larger bottles and sheer and iridescent. And Aroma Drops, which are scented. That is a little bit weird if you ask me, but okay. No matter what types you have, you can definitely use any of them for this technique. You'll get different looks depending on the finish, and it's always fun to experiment. If you aren't sure how they'll look, you can test them out on a spare piece of acetate and leave them to dry, then you'll know exactly what they'll look like on your finished project. Now I've finished the stained glass panel and set it aside to dry fully, I just need to finish off my card. I've cut an aperture from the front of a 6x6 card using the die from the stained glass set, and then cut the same aperture from another panel of pattern paper slightly smaller than the 6x6. Because I'm mounting the acetate panel from the inside of the card, this will cover up any messy adhesive and stop it showing through. Next I'll trim my acetate panel down so it fits inside my card and then stick that in, with the side I've applied Nuvo Drops to facing outwards. The pattern paper panel goes over the top. Now all I need to do is make a sentiment. I've gone with the Crafter's Companion sentiment stamp set and some yellow cardstock to bring in a bit more of that yellow since there was only a tiny bit of yellow in the middle of the flower. I'll stamp in black VersaFine ink and then mount that on some foam tape onto the front of my card. Last of all, I decided the card needed some extra embellishment, so I've pulled out these clear droplets to attach to the front. I thought they looked a bit like morning dew or raindrops on the window. I'll stick these on with some liquid glue, which looks a little opaque here, but once it dries you won't be able to see it. And that's it, we're all done with this card. There's so many different ways you could use this technique, and I'll definitely have to try it again with some different dies from my stash. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something new. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Check out my channel for more card making tutorials. I'll pop a link to my tutorial playlist at the end of the video and down in the description box. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here on my channel again soon. Bye!